Good morning and welcome to Community Conversations. I'm Vicki Green, and today is a day that I say this is why I love this job, because I get to sit down and share a conversation with a guest and with you, my listeners, with someone who has an incredible heart and who is truly unselfish to the core. Joining me today is Executive Director of the Friendly House in Worcester, Gordon Hargrove. Good morning, Gordon.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Vicki.
Thank you so much for being here. Friendly House, for those who may not know, outside of Worcester, we have many listeners that are not from Worcester proper. Friendly House is a social services organization that offers shelter, home placements, after-school programs for kids, and helps those in need find work, and many other things, and it's evolved over time. Gordon, you started working for Friendly House in 1957, and I'm not going to give away your age, but you were made program director and then became executive director in 1969. You've been honored by a plethora of Worcester organizations. You've been quoted in the press as a social justice champion, but above all else, you're a man with a big heart. So for those listening outside of the area, can you give us a quick history of Friendly House? I know it's going back to 1920.
Yes.
And if we can just go decade by decade, give us a quick history of it.
Sure. In 1920, there was a group of nurses from the city of Worcester, and they were very concerned about the population from Syria and Lebanon that was coming into Worcester, because originally people would get off on Union Station.
Off the train.
Yeah, off the train, and walk down the street, Shrewsbury Street, but that got so populated, they had to go east. So they walked across the tracks, many people did, and settled in on what they called at that time Dungarvan Hill, which is actually Grafton Hill.
Okay.
So usually what happens when there's a group of folks from one particular country, they kind of all settled together,
yep.
And a church was formed in the area, St. George's Syrian Orthodox Church. So the church was the focal point. What happened, the nurses were very concerned about the daily lives of the folks who did not speak English, who were really been taken advantage of, in terms of did not know the monetary system or even the bus system or anything. So they liked what we call the settlement house community center model. So in 1920, they opened up a small center with the help of actually the Civic League, which evolved into the Junior League, and offered a variety of services, recreation.
Dental, I think I did.
Yes,
read that?
yes.
Dental
we
services
did.
for the
Dental
1920s.
services, yes. We, I wasn't there at the time, although one of the kids,
Really?
One of the kids said to me, "Gordon, were you there then?" But yes, there was an old barber chair that we got a hold of, and volunteer dentists, and would clean the children's teeth free of charge, of course.
In the 1920s.
Yes,
now,
that's right.
Now in the 1930s, the Depression comes along.
Yes.
And everybody's hit. So what happens to Friendly House during the Depression?
Well, we were dealing not only with the Depression, but shortly after that with World War II.
That's right.
And what happened then, many of our workers and people who supported the organizations were away at war, and so we depended on neighbors for volunteer help and some of the older women from the Junior League. Now, of course, we had our own board of directors, so we were officially incorporated in 1936. And our first board president was Marjorie Morgan of Morgan Construction.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
I had a friend that worked there. That used to
Yes.
be, it's not there anymore. Though it's not in
no,
this old
unfortunately.
location.
Yeah. So,
big company.
Yes, it was. And then we had Mrs. Garfield, Mrs. Washburn from Washburn Garfield.
And wasn't Mrs. Washburn there right before, she stayed there for 22 years, did I read? And then you came in as?
Yeah. So I guess we had the who's who of Worcester, the wives of the industrialists. And these are very caring women. In fact, I did some writing a while ago, and the title of one of the chapters was Women Who Cared. And
I like that.
Yes, and these folks really were particularly concerned about the lives of the new arriving refugees.
This is after World War II?
Yes, yeah. Well, before World War II, but then afterwards, there was other groups of folks that we would see. Our Syrian folks, after the second generation, pretty much got settled in the city. But then we had people from Italy, okay? I often, every time I see a family that had first come.
You mean you still see them today?
Yes, I still see the family. Well,
the kids.
the children of the yes, that's right. When they first came to Wall Street and into the apartment, they first came to Friendly House, and they still had the tag on their jacket.
Wow.
After they got off the boat, literally. So they never forgot, where their roots were. So we had folks from Italy, and then of course, Grafton Hill originally was populated by people from Canada, Canadian French folks. So it was also known as French Hill at the time. And then as time went on, we had folks from Albania. Prior to that, though, many folks from Puerto Rico came, and Santo Domingo. And now, also right after the Vietnam War, we had a number of Vietnamese people settle into the neighborhood.
And then didn't you have people coming back from Vietnam that had served that were in, a terrible state? And
yes.
Were homeless and,
Yes,
and some
right.
of the war veterans.
Yes. One thing that what Friendly House does right now, our major priority, of course, is with homeless families. But whoever would come in that would be homeless, we would refer them to organizations that would take care of single individual homeless people. Well, a number of years ago, I got a call from a group of old veterans. So here's a group of us sitting around the
And you're a veteran.
Yes, yeah, sitting around a table, and fellas said, "Gordon, you're just running a shelter now. We're thinking of opening up a shelter for veterans." So I ended up being on the original planning board, and of course the rest is history. The veteran shelter in the city is just
very busy.
Very busy and a wonderful place. Yes, yeah.
Okay, so then we go through the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and where are we today as far as, I don't want to make this about you, and it's not about, it's not about every individual person, but we're coming into the holidays. So this is a time when people in need are thought of most. But what I personally feel, and I'm sure you agree with this, that it's a year-round issue.
Yes, it certainly is.
Even though the holidays, people volunteering at the holidays, their time, people donating, we need that to continue. And people can join WXLO and Friendly House for the 13th annual Worcester County Sheriff's Department Food Drive, the Railers hockey team, and WPI's Lambda Chi fraternity to collect food for Friendly House's annual Thanksgiving basket distribution. The event is going to be held at the Price Chopper on Route 20 in Worcester from 9 to 3 on November 15th and November 16th. So again, you can bring items to donate for these Thanksgiving baskets that will go to Friendly House folks on Route 20 at Price Chopper in Worcester on November 15th and 16th. Now, Friendly House distributes more than 1,000 turkey baskets annually, and
Yes,
is
we
this
do.
going up?
Yes, it is. Last year, I think we were at approximately 1,100. This year, we see a 5% increase over what we had done last year.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's a number of reasons. One of the factors is, one of the basic factors is income versus is not keeping up with housing rentals. So quite often people, when they get an increase, I'm aware of a number of families that have just received increases.
You mean from Social Security or from?
No, from the landlord.
Rent
Yes,
increases.
rent increases. Oh, yes, yeah. I'm aware of families that have to have 2 jobs just to be able
Or
to.
3.
Yeah, or 3, or yes, that's right, or just to pay the rent and the utilities. And some of the other needs. Obviously, transportation is an issue. So quite often we will get calls from folks needing a car or help with repairing cars. I'm not saying that we're in that business necessarily.
But you refer them.
Yes, we do.
It seems like call Friendly House and they'll take care of it for
well.
you. We don't want people thinking that necessarily. However, are you seeing an increase year-round, not just at Thanksgiving and Christmas, but year-round, an increase in need for food from the food pantry side of Friendly House?
Yes, we are. And also, there's also a variety of reasons for that. Recently, after the hurricane in Puerto Rico, Maria, Worcester had seen 1,108 individual folks.
1,108?
Yes.
Sure.
I'm positive. Yes.
Okay. I don't mean to make light of this because I know you, and you know probably that every 1,108 of those people.
Well, not quite. But, out of this number, of course, were families and children and so on and so forth. So this was an issue that we needed to work closely with because quite often people came without very much. They were living in hotels and with other family members cohabitating. Worcester Housing Authority was great in terms of opening their doors. But still in all, folks needed furniture, clothing. They needed help with food.
And the mayor called you, didn't he?
Yes,
you to help
and the city manager both the same day. But we had I have to say we had a wonderful committee. Sarai Rivera, the mayor's folks, and city manager's folks, and people from the health department and school department and so forth. So
right, because there's kids in these families that had to go into the school.
Yeah, I think there was a number that I had originally, about 400 children were in the schools.
As coming here from
Yes,
Puerto Rico, from the hurricane.
Yes, that's right. Obviously, the number has gone down. A number of folks have gone back to Puerto Rico. So the original number is a lot smaller now. But still in all, I mean, that was one of the things that we had to look at and say, okay.
And be flexible.
Yeah.
Come up with a plan.
And that's, that's the basic philosophy of a settlement house, community center, friendly house, is flexibility when you can't be rigid because, let me give you another example. I got a call from the mayor a number of years ago, and the power went off in one of the housing units, elderly housing.
Friendly House?
No, one of the housing.
The housing authority?
Yeah, housing authority apartments. So what can we do? Okay, so
they call you?
Yes. Well,
it's not even your building?
No, but that's fine because
right.
we do serve seniors, and we do work very cooperatively with whomever, whatever the issues may be. So we were able to work with the Worcester County Food Bank and to have a volunteer drive because a lot of the food was spoiled because the refrigerators didn't work in the apartments. So these are some of the things that
aren't even programs. It's you're able to gather as a community.
Right.
The mayor gathers all of his resources.
That's
and
right.
You're a big one, and you all come together to help. And
that's right, and that's that's the beauty of Worcester. And I often tell people Worcester is a very caring place. You see,
and it's a very small community.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I know that during the problems in Kosovo, many Albanians were sent to Fort Dix, and of course, Worcester has, per its population, the highest number of Albanians per its population of any city in the country, in the area. So we were called upon to say, look at what can happen, what can you do? Because we have an Albanian worker at Friendly House. So it was interesting because the focal point is St. Mary's Albanian Church for many Albanians, which I remember. I'm a card-carrying Albanian, by the way.
And you're also, you and your wife, your father, which we didn't talk about, but your father instilled, I think, a lot of this in you because he ran the Boys and Girls Club.
Yes, he did.
It was first a Boys Club, and then a Boys and Girls Club.
Yes.
And that you and your wife are in the Hall of Fame at the Boys and Girls Club, and you're probably on every board known to man. But you know what? I know you don't want to talk about it, but how many people do you serve at the Friendly House Shelter annually?
Well,
approximately.
Okay. When you say Friendly House Shelter,
you've got Elm Street.
Yeah, we've got Elm Street. Elm Street, June Street, and then we have a shelter in the Grafton Hill neighborhood.
So three, yeah.
Three, yeah. So each shelter, Elm Street has 6 families. June Street has 6 families. Elm Street has 10 families. And then our other shelter has about another 10. So,
and you find placement too in other housing complexes for people.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like you're never going to say no. You're going to find a way.
What we also do, we have signed contracts with a variety of landlords. So we have 45 scattered site apartment units throughout Worcester and Leominster as well, Leominster and Fitchburg. Mm-hmm. So about 45 scattered site apartments on top of the folks who are in our shelter, on top of folks because we manage the emergency hotel motel program for the city. Mm-hmm. Are those number of rooms going down? We hear about that at the state level, that they're trying their best. Everyone's trying to get people out of the hotels. Yes, they are. Well,
because it's subsidized.
Yes. Unfortunately, no. I think today we have 5 families in the hotels on an emergency basis. Yeah. So sometimes we're at 0 in the hotel, but these are very basic emergency situations for families.
Now, you also have an after-school program for children. And what kinds of things are the kids, how are they different today than, the needs of the kids different today than they were in the 80s?
Well, I was outside a Friendly House the other day, and I was watching the children coming up from Grafton Street School, and I was saying, now, what's the difference between when I first started here in the 50s and now? And, I said, well, maybe the dress is a little bit different, and the kids have backpacks now where they didn't before. But there was still the excitement. The children would run up the street and turn the corner and run up the stairs at Friendly House, all talking with each other and so forth.
And they had a place to go.
And they had a place to go, yes. And this was true almost for the last 100 years or so. So, as far as children, sure, maybe in terms of ethnicity and race and so forth, things changed over the years. But what we try to say is we try to provide structured program in a safe place.
And it's amazing because you think of there are plenty of other organizations in the city that offer after school, like Girls Inc. and the Boys and Girls Club and others.
Oh, yes.
And you still alone service how many kids? You were telling me roughly.
Well, we're
a month.
Yes, we're at capacity. We average anywhere from 50 to 70. We can't really go beyond that because of safety and regulations and staff ratios, you see. In the summer, we obviously serve more than that because most of the time the children are on bus trips to various parks and so forth. But when you mention the Boys Club, Boys and Girls Club and Girls Inc. and the Ys and so forth, we're part of a consortium called Youth Connect. So unlike past years where we were all separate, now we're together.
When did that start?
Well, approximately 5 years ago.
Oh, okay.
But then that was the forerunner. I should say the forerunner of that. When the city closed the pools, they called us and said, can you come up with an idea?
Sure.
Sure. So within 2 weeks, we came together and we started a program called Wheels to Water. So we would have buses going around various parts of the city and bringing the children to the state pools and the various ponds and lakes throughout the city.
That brings up, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I read about a story about you in an article, probably from the Telegram and Gazette, a couple of years ago, I think it was, that you jumped in a van and you took kids to the North End to a pool. Do you remember this story?
Yeah.
And that you were asked to leave for some reason? And you were trying to help these children, and something happened in Boston that didn't cross your mind that it was going to happen.
Yes. It's something I'm not particularly happy about over the years, but quite a few years ago in the, I want to say the early 70s, we had a number of children.
Was this after after
yes,
the schools were segregated?
Yes, that's right. Mm-hmm. But we had there still was issues around segregation and race.
Still is?
Yeah, there still is, but, I agree. So we decided to form what I called a multicultural day camp. And we had children from all races, ethnicities, and so forth. And this was a camp, Wind in the Pines, which was the YWCA camp, where we had children all together and enjoying various things. Well, anyway, the last day of the program was Gordon's trip to Boston, okay? So
what happened?
Well, the bus followed me to Boston, a very hot day. So after we went up to we were at the Boston Common and so on and so forth. Well, the kids were hot, and the Bunker Hill Monument, we had to climb the stairs because the elevator wasn't working. Gordon, we're hot. So I said, okay, let's go over to Atlantic Avenue because there's a Boston Parks Commission swimming pool. So I brought the kids there, and all ethnicities. Mm-hmm. So the kids were having a great time, but one of the things that I did notice, one by one, whoever was in the pool when we came all of a sudden left. So we were the only ones in the pool, our kids. A lifeguard came over to me and said, I'm not sure how this is going to work out. And I said, excuse me, what? What do you mean, what? And I apologize. I just wasn't thinking, okay? I was thinking in the moment about a whole mixture of children having a good time.
Of course. So I think it's a good example of things that we unfortunately see still happening today, that you came in, there's people there that are afraid of people they don't know.
That's right.
Kids that may be different than them.
Yes.
And they were asking you to, basically you decided we better go back to
Well, I decided we better go back because we were threatened. Okay.
And that's, and I think that the reason I bring that up is for a specific reason, because I this stuff still happens today. I think sensitivity, in my perspective, has definitely gone higher to this. I think people are more accepting now.
Yes,
Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I mean, one of the things that we of course work with children who are from the gay community, particularly high school students, and so quite often there are issues there. But, at the same time, I find, as compared to when I went to school, quite often many of the young people are more accepting of children from various groups than when I went to school.
Yeah, and I think that's a wonderful thing. Now, we're going to wrap up. So you said quite often that every person has their own story. What do you think, as we wrap up, is the biggest misconception of people that are low income or in homeless situations? Because you told me a story, and I'm going to say it real quickly, of seeing people out begging for money, they used the term panhandler in the time, and in a Walgreens parking lot in Worcester, and you actually went up to them and asked them what their story was.
Yes, well, I knew most of them, as it turns out. So we would sit together, and each person had their own individual reason. For example, there's one young woman that would sit on a pillow. I don't want to say too much because of confidentiality, but she had her roommate died suddenly, and she suffered an illness, and she was forced to leave her apartment because she couldn't pay the rent. So
So she wasn't on drugs.
no,
She wasn't.
no,
Not to say there aren't people.
No, she wasn't.
addicted.
No, she wasn't. It was just a whole series of life circumstances that resulted in her being there. So what we did was, okay, we connected her with one of the workers from SMOC in the program for individuals, and getting her a place to live.
And that's what's so amazing to me is that you literally went up, and someone that works with you told me, well, first of all, I know that I've heard that you go spend your weekends sometimes going to yard sales to pick up furniture. This is Gordon Hargrove. This isn't Friendly House as an organization. This is you. You taking kids, you talking to people, you getting furniture, and you're backed up by a very large number of volunteers and supporters.
Yes, and
right?
staff. I have to say, our volunteers are wonderful, and our staff. Someone came into the agency and they said, "This is an amazing culture that I'm feeling here," and that's what we want to have moved to anybody who comes into Friendly House.
Yeah, and one of your staff told me, they said, people see you on the street. You're so well known in as a helper and a social service worker that people come up to you on the street and say, "Hey, Gordon," they know you by your name, and they say, "I'm hungry. Can you help me out?" How do you handle that?
Well, first of all, I'll say, why are you hungry? What's going on in your life? And then we kind of go from there. Usually I get somebody something to eat. I don't necessarily give out money, but I'll get somebody something to eat. And then we'll sit down and talk about their life situation.
One-on-one, you do this?
Yes, one-on-one, yeah.
All the time?
Yes.
I don't know if you're ever home, but
Okay.
I do want to remind folks that we are having the event coming up, that you can bring donated food items to the Price Chopper on Route 20 in Worcester on November 15th and 16th. Jen and Frank from the XLO Morning Show will be there in the morning, along with the Sheriff's Department, the Railers, WPI's Lamb Dekai, Friendly House, and others to collect for the baskets that Friendly House distributes. So if anyone really quickly wants to get in touch because they want to help or donate their services or time or food, do they go to your website?
Yes, I do.
Which is?
Friendly House at friendlyhousema.org.
Okay.
Or they can come right to Wall Street, number 36 Wall Street in Worcester, Grafton Hill.
But if they live outside of the city,
Yes,
they
of
can
course.
go to the website.
Yes, yeah.
Friendlyhouse.org.
And they can donate and just let us know what it is exactly you'd like us to do.
So I'm going to end the show on a quote from you, Gordon Hargrove from Friendly House. "There is meaning for a person's life in striving to make certain that others are not hungry, homeless, and overwhelmed by multiple problems." Again, there is meaning for a person's life in striving to make certain that others are not hungry, homeless, and overwhelmed by multiple problems. So I'm going to take some time to think about this and hope that everyone listening takes time to let that sink in. So thank you, Gordon Hargrove, for your amazing work of more than 50 years. You're coming up on the 100th anniversary of Friendly House in 2020. It's been an honor to have you in studio today. Thank you.
It's been an honor to be here, and thank you to all your listeners.
And everybody on the streets of Worcester, I'm sure, thanks you every day. That's Community Conversations. I'm Vicki Green. Have a wonderful day. Hey.